Hello everybody. I welcome you to today's Roznama session with the daily newspaper analysis. All right. Now yesterday in the newspaper analysis, again for the past 2-3 days, we only have the European Union Free Trade Agreement that is making the roundabouts. And the second interesting bit that has come up now is the economic survey. Now till today, we'll have the economic survey doing the roundabouts, and tomorrow we have the union budget coming in. All right. So this entire next 1 week and 15 days, the entire analysis and everything in the newspaper will be centered around the economic policies of the country. So do keep a good, wonderful eye out. And the second thing for the budget that you have to keep an eye out is that the budget is always a probable statement, all right, in the sense that the government just outlines that these are the various things that the government seeks to undertake in the next 1 year. Okay, so the government is going to outline innumerable new schemes tomorrow in the budget. So those are the schemes which you mostly have to focus for your this year's exam. All right, now coming to the major headlines for today, we have naturally the European Union coming into picture. And along with the European Union, we have this one sector which is making the headlines, and the sector being the manufacturing sector. All right. Now, what does this actually show? And we have a lot of editorials in the newspaper today which focus around the manufacturing sector of India. All right. Now, what are these sectors? The entire economic activities in the country are broadly classified into 3 major sectors. The 3 being primary sector, secondary sector, and the tertiary sector. And also, if we go a little more into details, then these 3 sectors, and specifically the last one, is further divided into 2 others, which are known as quaternary sector, quaternary and quinary sectors. All right. So the entire economic structure in terms of activities in India is divided into these 5 basic sectors, and narrowly speaking, 3 basic sectors: primary, secondary and tertiary sectors. All right. So primary sector basically deals with agriculture and allied activities, things which talk about the production of raw materials. Secondary sector talks about the processing bit, the manufacturing bit, that is the sector which basically deals with production, and that is the industrial sector. The third one, the tertiary, deals with the services sectors. All right. Then quaternary deals with the management sectors, and quinary deals with the top-notch policy making, decision making sectors. All right. So this manufacturing sector falls under the secondary sector or the industrial sector. What this basically draws our attention towards it is a basic, it has been in India for many years now that the primary sector employs the maximum percentage of population. That is around 55% of the population is employed in the primary sector, followed by the tertiary or the services sector, and then the secondary sector or the manufacturing sector. But when we look at their percentage share in the GDP of the country, so the primary sector roughly contributes around 16%. Secondary sector also roughly contributes around 17% to the country's GDP. All right. Now, for the past 5-6 years, specifically since 2020, the Indian government has been more inclined towards making the country a developed nation by 2047. So the Indian government has this entire idea of becoming a Viksit Bharat by 2047. And the second bit, that is to aid in this development, the government also has this basic outlined idea towards Atmanirbharta or self-reliance. All right. So Atmanirbharta is Atmanirbhar Bharat. So this Atmanirbhar Bharat loosely translates to greater dependence and upliftment of the manufacturing sector. All right. Now, if you look at the free trade agreement in terms of the India-European Union deal, the deal mostly has all those sectors outlined which are the major labor-intensive industries of the country, like textiles, pharmaceuticals, etc. And naturally, they are all industries. Okay. So our Union Minister Piyush Goyal, he's basically said that this deal is going to be a landmark changing deal in terms of lifting the manufacturing sector, aiding the development of manufacturing sector, and maybe also increasing the total share of the manufacturing sector in GDP from 17 to around 22 to 25%. And this outline of 22 to 25% total share of manufacturing sector in the GDP was also targeted by the government under the National Manufacturing Mission, which was launched in the budget last year in 2025. All right. So this article just gives you his insight into how the European Union trade deal is going to aid India's manufacturing sector. All right. Also keep all of these pointers in mind now. Okay, then moving to the next one. All right, a very wonderful initiative taken by the Supreme Court, very wonderful directive given by the Supreme Court yesterday, which said that menstrual health is a part of fundamental right to life. What is fundamental right to life? Fundamental right to life in its totality is understood as the fundamental right to life and personal liberty, which is translated into various interpretations like right to life with dignity, right to clean environment, right to sleep, right to stay silent, right to privacy, etc. Okay, and this right to life is provided for under Article 21 of the Constitution, and Article 21 is found in Part 3 of the Constitution, which deals with fundamental rights. Part 3 is known as the Magna Carta of India, and Part 3 is contains articles from Article 12 to Article 35, which deal with fundamental rights. All right. So menstrual health and hygiene has been a major problem in India. It is not only limited to schools, it goes beyond schools as well, specifically in the underdeveloped regions, in villages where maybe the awareness is not so much and the society is still rooted in a lot of superstition. All right. And lack of menstrual hygiene also leads to too many health problems, too much stigma associated with girl children not being sent to schools, etc. So the Supreme Court has now made it an onus of private schools as well as government schools to ensure that menstrual health is provided for girls in each and every school in the country, and it is a part of Article 21. Okay, and this simply entails separate toilets for girls and boys, free sanitary pads for girls, and then naturally when such things are being provided for, also menstrual hygiene education must be provided in schools to girls as well. All right. Okay. Then the same article has been provided for in the Hindu as well, where again they've called for the same provision. They've said that it determines dignity, privacy, and bodily autonomy of a girl child. Denial of menstrual hygiene measures denies girls equal participation in school, because naturally if the infrastructure is not provided, a lot of girls are reluctant to go to schools during those days. So just to enhance the equality of opportunities for girls, this has been a wonderful step in this particular direction. It is not only going to give recognition to Article 21 but also Article 14 and 15 of the Constitution. All right. Okay. Then 2 days back, the Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Ajit Pawar, passed away in an airplane crash. So now there has been this news that Sunetra Pawar, that is the wife of the former Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra, is now set to become the Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra. Formal news piece, a formal declaration of this is still awaited. And when she takes up the post of the Deputy Chief Minister, then she will become the first woman Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra. Okay. All right. Then this particular news piece, US Museum has declared that it is going to return 3 bronze sculptures which were illegally removed from the temples of Tamil Nadu to India. All right. What are these 3 bronze sculptures? These are basically Nataraj statues which date back to the 12th century and that were made under the Chola period rule. Okay, now the Chola period is actually distinguished for its specific art and architecture. And in terms of architecture, they did establish this entire temple architecture of South India, which is termed as Dravidian architecture. Okay, it is termed as Dravidian architecture. And what this architecture actually entails, that if by any chance any of you've actually visited any temple in the south, and specifically the Meenakshi temple, a beautiful one, so there are certain distinctive differences between the temples as you see them in North India, which follows a Nagar style of architecture, and the architectural style of Southern Indian temples. The Southern Indian temples, they have extremely tall gopurams. What are gopurams? Gopurams are entryways to the temples. And not only are these gopurams very, very tall, but they're extensively decorated with small, small miniatures and sculptures, etc. And beautifully colored with nice, vibrant colors. So these are certain specific temple architectural distinctive styles between the differences between the Northern Indian temple styles and Southern Indian. So this Southern Indian temple architecture was brought during the Chola period, known as the Dravidian architecture. And what else, the other thing that the Chola period is actually known for is its style of sculpturing. Okay, so and in this style of sculpturing, the most famous one is the Nataraj statue. It is a bronze statue. I believe everybody must have seen the statue somewhere or the other, and it basically, depicts the Lord Shiva, and not only Shiva dancing, but it is an Ardhanarishwar statue depicting half of the half deity being female and half being male, and Shiva is dancing on this small dwarf, which is depicted as the ego of a particular person. All right, so it is a wonderful sculpture which dates back to the Chola period, and there are three of them: the Shiv Nataraj, the Somaskand, and Saint Sundarar with Parvati. All right, so these three sculptures are said to return to India. So keep in mind that the Chola period is known for its Dravidian architecture and its bronze sculpture styles. All right, okay. Then coming to the next one, again Piyush Goyal, he's again given greater recognition to the entire upliftment of the manufacturing sector that is set to take place because of the European Union India Free Trade Agreement, and also he said that it will be implemented in 2026 itself. All right, okay. Then the next piece of news that you have to keep in mind is that Palestine minister has said that Hamas should join the PLO, all right, or the Palestine Liberation Organization. Now, the Palestine Liberation Organization was established in 1964, and this is the legitimate and legally internationally recognized organization to put forth the entire demand of a Palestine state. Okay, and it is this organization to which the control of Palestinian territories were transferred to the Oslo Accords of 1993 and 1995, and any negotiation that takes place with the representatives of Palestine takes place with Palestine Liberation Organization. Hamas is an offshoot of the Palestine Liberation Organization. Now, Palestine Liberation Organization is a more of a pacified or a very pacific organization, has a moderate approach. Hamas, on the other hand, is a more radical group, does not shy away from using violence, terror, etc. to get the demands met. That is why Hamas is an internationally recognized terror organization, which was established in the year 1987. All right. So now the Palestine minister has called for joining of Hamas to PLO so that a more concerted demand can put forth and the entire war between Israel and Hamas can come to a conclusive end. All right. Also keep in mind that Donald Trump has talked about this establishment of the Gaza Board of Peace, of which Donald Trump himself is the self-made president, and he's also the ex-officio chairman of the board, meaning that in case that he goes out of power also, when he goes out of power, he will still remain the chairperson of the Gaza Board of Peace. Okay. Donald Trump had asked India also. India was also an invitee to become a member of the Board of Peace, but India till now has not given any decisions over it. Okay. All right. Then another piece of news, it said that now almost 98% of rural households have been covered under the Jal Jeevan scheme. All right. What is the scheme? This scheme has been implemented since 2019 under Ministry of Jal Shakti. Initially, the scheme was for 5 years. That is from 2019 till 2024. What was the purpose of the scheme? The purpose of the scheme was to provide a tap, functional household tap connection to all rural households. All right. So please remember that the scheme is only for rural households. So one of the objective was to provide functional household tap connections. Functional मतलब कि जब भी नल खोलो तो नल चले. And another is that this functional tap should provide at least 55 liters of water per day per person. Okay, these were the two aims. Now, after 5 years, that is in 2024, the scheme could not cover or meet its entire target of providing functional tap connections to all rural households. So, in 2025, last year, the scheme was extended for another 3 years till 2028 to cover all the rural households. Now, the report says that 98% of rural households have been covered under the scheme. All right, remember the scheme is only to provide tap connections to rural households. Urban areas में इसलिए नहीं है क्योंकि urban areas में mostly facilities available होती हैं और urban areas के लिए अलग scheme है government की, which is the Amrut scheme. Okay. All right. Then coming to the editorial pieces for today, this particular editorial forms a prelude to tomorrow's budget, that what are the various things and ideas that the government has to keep in mind while formulating the budget now. All right. So one point that he's highlighted is the weak GDP growth. Although it has been majorly highlighted in the economic survey also that the Indian economy is growing at a much rapid pace and is now the 4th largest economy in the world, set to become the 3rd largest economy, etc. But this growth has been very, very slow. So although we are witnessing growth in GDP, but the growth in GDP is slow. And the second bit that has to be kept in mind is that this slow GDP growth has been, brought into existence because one section of the population are becoming richer while the other section are not becoming rich as at par with the speed of this section, meaning that the rich are becoming richer while the poor are, their economic condition is not improving as at the same pace as that of the rich people. All right. Then it also calls about weak tax buoyancy. That is, in spite of all the tax concessions, etc., that the government is extending to the people, the total amount of tax collection is not as much as the expenditure of the government is entailed. All right. And then also he said, talked about weak private corporate investments, that because of the fluctuating market, investments in the private sectors are not as much as should be to result in a good economic growth in the country. All right. So this is a wonderful article, talks about these things, can go through. Then economic survey has raised India's potential growth rate. Potential growth meaning anticipated growth rate. All right. It is not a solid bagged growth rate in the sense that we do not know for sure that this is what will absolutely be our growth rate in the future. We are only, looking at all the possibilities through which we feel that the growth rate would be at a massive rate in the next 1 year. So potential meaning that we have it in ourselves, that if the necessary buttons are pushed effectively, then and in the correct manner, then naturally we can witness a massive growth rate. All right. So it says that the potential growth rate depends on 3 main factors: the capital stock in the economy, which is all the physical assets in the countries like roads, bridges, connectivity, etc. 2, the labor input, the amount of people who are employed in the country. And 3, the total factor productivity, that is the efficiency with which labor and capital are used in the economy. If these things are done effectively, then naturally we have a wonderful potential to our growth rate. Okay. All right. Then this particular article draws attention to RTI through yesterday's economic survey only. And it says that RTI isn't idle curiosity, it's accountability. Now, what is RTI? RTI is the Right to Information Act. What does this Right to Information Act actually seek to do? Right to Information Act was brought in 2005 and last year it has completed 20 years. The purpose of RTI Act again has been outlined under the fundamental right to life and personal liberty in Article 21 of the Constitution, and under right to information, the government sought to increase the accountability and transparency of the government as well as in government functioning. That is, if anybody anywhere feels that, somehow they have been unjustly treated at the expense of the government, then they can always file a complaint through the Information Commission and get whatever information it is that they need from the government, and the government must adhere to it. Now, naturally, if the person seeks information which in any way hinders somebody's right to privacy, etc., then the Information Commission can also deny. All right. So, the right to information also resulted in the establishment of the Information Commission at the center as well as the Information Commission in states. And it is these Information Commissions which are liable to adhere to provide information to the general public to make the government functioning more accountable as well as more transferable. All right. Okay, so this gives us an insight into how effective the Right to Information Act actually is. All right. Okay. Then coming to the next editorial in today's paper, it is again focusing on the manufacturing sector, and it talks about how the manufacturing sector can, be benefited from the new trade deal, and what are the basic things that the manufacturing sector has to look into to increase its entire share to the GDP. All right. So it does say that, India's manufacturing policy has mostly previously also focused on lowering entry barriers, meaning that it has, tried to liberalize the entire system. How did this liberalization come about? It came through the LPG policy or the new economic policy of 1991. And through the LPG policy, the government tried to do away with the license Raj in the sense that the government would issue licenses, and the licenses were, very rationed in number. Not everybody could get the right to access setting up of industries, etc. Enhanced entry of private sectors into the employment market. So all this was undertaken back then, and through this they tried to, reduce the entry barrier so that more industries could come up. More the industries, better employment opportunities, and increased production. But this increased production suffered from one major challenge, and that was the challenge of poor standard of goods that we were producing, which is still today, which India is suffering from till today, in the sense that our quality standards tend to not match with the quality standards of other countries. And because it does not match the quality standards, it is here that, our entire area of manufacturing suffers then. We can't import our goods, export our goods, the demand for our exports reduce as compared to the exports of some other countries. All right. So this is what this article actually talks about, that this is how they can do so. And also it says that whatever manufacturing that we are doing, the country should also now transition towards manufacture of strategically important things like semiconductors, which has been making the news for the past some days, some months, some years, specifically with packs, silica, etc. And also they've talked about that they should transition from traditional manufacturing industries to more technology intensive sectors. Okay. And this is how they are going. And also to now establish industries not only in the tier 1 cities, but also in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, which will benefit the greater economy in a, which will benefit the greater population in a larger sense. Okay. And here it says that India's manufacturing leap will be defined not just by how much it produces, but what it produces, the quality as well as its strategic importance. Okay, so these are two things that the article has talked about. Then next one, again, basically says that this entire, India EU FTA that came into existence was pushed into its quick space, although, the entire talks were on the table since 2022-23, but nothing came about of it. They were continuously negotiating, but the entire final push was given to it by US threatening to impose tariffs on European Union. Okay, so because and the backdrop of it, one of the reasons for the EU FTA being pushed up was, the former, this thing, kya kehte hain, US's entire tariff push. It says that this trade deal that actually came into existence builds or restores the trust in a rules-based trade order. That you be kind and well understood by each other and negotiate terms as per the needs and requirements of each others. So this entire trade has, this entire trade deal has come into existence to this idea only. All right, that both the countries, they sat together, negotiated. There were certain ifs and buts that India negotiated through, navigated through. There were certain things that EU wanted to pitch in, and then eventually they came to a particular agreement. So again, a good one. You all can go through it. All right. Then signing of FTAs is a start. That success will be judged by gains in the global market. Okay, so this again draws attention to certain, negative points or certain cons of the Indian manufacturing sector, like standards, that the quality standards are not at par with that is, given by other countries. Then the second is complexity. Complexity here simply says that, ease of doing business is not as good in India as it is in other countries, and also that FTAs can open export markets, that they do open up markets, like in the sense that we've signed this free trade agreement with European Union. So we have been given this opportunity that we can send our goods to Europe for further sale, etc. But it does not ensure access to best inputs as well as machines. All right, FTAs only provide for import and export of goods. They do not, give without saying that we will also be able to import good machineries, technologies, etc. So in spite of, getting trade deals signed, our work is still on the basis of good standard or quality of goods, and also how efficiently are we producing it. All right, so this basically talks about the challenges in the manufacturing sector and how can India overcome these challenges. Okay, then this particular article was naturally a tribute to Mahatma Gandhi. Yesterday, the 30th of January is observed in India as Martyrs' Day, and it was on this day in 1948 that Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated by Nathuram Godse. All right, so this article basically talks about that what pushed Nathuram Godse to believe that Mahatma Gandhi, has been responsible for the partition of India. And this article gives you an idea as to what were the basic circumstances back then and how Mahatma Gandhi actually, tried to negotiate and bring to terms Muhammad Ali Jinnah that partition should not be undertaken in the country, but then Jinnah was not relenting. Then also he pressurized Patel and Jawaharlal Nehru to, rethink over partition, etc. But when no other leaders were relenting, so he blamed everything, blamed in the sense that he put everything on the circumstances back then. But then there were certain Hindu fanatics like Nathuram Godse, who believed that Mahatma Gandhi partitioned, not only got the country partitioned, but also had certain favors, had a soft spot for certain other religious communities. So that pushed him over the edge and he assassinated Mahatma Gandhi. All right. So this entire article gives you an insight into everything that Mahatma Gandhi tried to do to prevent the partition of India. All right. Then again, this article, a very simple one, just talks about the, everything that the economic survey of the country has actually laid out, and talked about how whatever good things that India has done in the last 1 year and what are the prospective probable things that India might do in the next 1 year. Okay. Then this article just gives you an opinion onto the UCG rules, which were protested against by the general community people, that they were discriminatory because the rules talked about bringing in equity in terms of students and teachers in university campuses, that there shouldn't be any discrimination against anybody on the campus. It should be a holistic learning environment. But students from the general category protested, saying that it seeks to provide equity only to the to people belonging to certain castes only, and they've outlined specific they've outlined the term caste discrimination in the provisions of the draft rules. So they believe that it is, doing away with the entire equality and equity of other students. That discrimination can also be against people in the general students belonging to the general category, which has not been given due recognition by the UCG rules. So the Supreme Court has put a stay on its implementation. Okay. Then this article I've just put in, you all can go through it. It only talks about how that, steel is one of the major manufacturing sectors of the country, the steel industries, iron and steel. And iron and steel is also one of those things that we import from otherwise outside India as well. And this article basically says that, if we start producing green steel in the sense that all the energy that is used in the manufacturing of steel or in the manufacturing process in any iron and steel industry, it should be harnessed from renewable sources. All right. So this article just talks about that if renewable sources are harnessed in manufacturing of steel in the country, so how well can it help India achieving its nationally determined contributions by 2050. Okay. Then this particular article, a good article on the 27th Amendment in the Pakistan's constitution. All right. Now, this particular amendment was brought in last year in November 2025, and this amendment, sought to give a little more expansive power to the military head of Pakistan. All right. Now, everybody knows that the entire governmental structure of Pakistan is based on military rule. The military there is overbearing over the constitutional structures like the prime minister, etc., and now even the judiciary. So what does this 27th amendment actually say there? That there will be a new position that will be established as Chief of Defence Staff, and with the rank holder of this Chief of Defence Staff would be the head of this, the Chief of Defence in Pakistan would be a Field Marshal. So last year it was in news that General Asim Munir had acclaimed himself as the Field Marshal to just, have a good control and grip over the entire governmental structure. A Chief of Defence Staff was to be instituted. Then this Chief of Defence Staff was supposed to have more expansive executive power to the extent that they talked about establishing a federal constitutional court, which would supersede the constitutional court of Pakistan, and this federal constitutional court will deal with constitutional disputes, will deal with interpretation of constitution, interpretation of fundamental rights in Pakistan, etc. And this basically then drew attention to the fact that the entire ambit of separation of executive from the judiciary is now not being followed in Pakistan, is going to be done away with, because this amendment has now received presidential assent. All right. So what are the basic inputs of the 27th amendment? That creation of Chief of Defence Staff, which would be a Field Marshal rank officer, and then creation of federal court of Federal Constitutional Court, which would supersede the Constitutional Court of Pakistan, and this federal court will interpret the constitution and the fundamental rights, and naturally will be more powerful as compared to other than this, the executive is going to be made more powerful, will be given more concentration of powers. All right. So this particular article just talks about the 27th Amendment and what all does it seek to change in Pakistan. Okay. In India, there is a strict separation of judiciary from the executive. This strict separation of judiciary from the executive has been provided for in Article 50 of the Constitution in Part 4, and also separation of judiciary from the executive forms the basic structure of the constitution. This basic structure was outlined by the Keshwanand Bharti case of 1973. Okay, so just keep this in mind with respect to India. All right. Okay, then news in brief for today. Israel has now decided to open the Gaza-Egypt border after 2 years of closing it. That is the Rafah border, which formed the border between Egypt and Egypt and Gaza, the Gaza Strip. Okay, then the next one is Pakistan is now going to again, they've had a meeting with Turkey and they're now trying to deepen their defense ties further. This was in news. Why I'm taking this up is only that you have to keep in mind the Pahalgam attack. During the Pahalgam attack, it was an attack which was undertaken through the unmanned aerial vehicles, and it was in these unmanned aerial vehicles that a lot of drones had come into India from ये क्या कहते हैं from Pakistan. And when we undertook our research in those drones, a lot of those drones were from Turkey. Okay, so India did, issue a statement that 2-3 years back in 2022, there was this major earthquake that had hit Turkey and Syria, and India was the first country to send humanitarian aid to Turkey back then through Operation Dost. Operation Dosti, you can see, and this is how Turkey pays back. All right, so just keep this in mind. Then the next one, all right, Venezuela, the entire takeover by the US president, and then also the present president, acting president in Venezuela. She also did say that Venezuela is let Venezuela make its independent decisions, and Venezuela wants to stay away from US, etc. And the entire takeover, everybody knows, was only and only for oil. So now Venezuela government, which was suffering because of all this takeover and everything, has now opened its oil sector to privatization. Yeah, that private companies can come and harness oil. Then again, just a continuation of all the retaliatory talks that are taking place between USA and Iran. Iran has said that Iran is not going to negotiate with US under any pressure or under any threat. Let us talk as equals. Okay. The threats being that if Iran does not, US had extended this ultimatum that you have to come to terms quickly, otherwise, US is all ready to send its warships, etc., to this entire armada to Iran. And Iran said that Iran is also absolutely ready. But now Iran is saying that they will negotiate, but then negotiate like countries and not negotiate like terrorists. Okay. So that was everything for today's newspaper analysis. I hope everything was clear. Tomorrow is going to be a little more power-packed because of the union budget coming in. So keep an eye out for that, and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, thank you.
So I hope you have begun seeing it on the screen. So this is how it's going to look once you log in. Okay. Now, once you've logged into your accounts, you are going to see this free course called Roznama. The moment you log in, now don't worry, we are going to reveal where you can find it, and it will go live tomorrow for all of you. So as you can see on the left here, you have the various days of the week listed so that you can have a look at which all days are already prepared. So you go ahead, let's have a look at the latest day, that is the 30th of January. Okay, so the moment you come to it, you'll reach this entry page, right? It's a very easy to use interface. You mark complete and go next. Immediately, you see a quiz of 25 questions covering English, logical reasoning, legal reasoning, GK and current affairs, as well as quantitative techniques. So you can directly go ahead and take a look. You start your assessment, you see what sources have been used for the day, and it immediately takes you to today's Roznama comprehensive practice question, right? So it involves the passages of the day, questions in the form of multiple choice questions. So you can go ahead and practice this each and every day. Okay, so I'm not going to submit it because this is just a preview. Now, after you're done with the test for the day, you will be able to see the next section. What is that? It is a briefing on the key takeaways of the day. So, this part is prepared by Dr. Surbhi Modi, who works on the article you have just done in the comprehensive practice, and then you are able to have a look at the deep dive of one of those articles. Once you're done with that, you go on to the next one and you will be able to see the daily newspaper analysis of the day. Next, we have the top 5 section where you see the news of the day in brief. Just 5 pieces of news with all of the relevant details on the screen as you go. Okay, all of it is collated and fact checked from the newspapers and from official sources. Okay, so I hope that's given you a look. Next is the words of the day section that gives you the top 10 words, their meanings, definitions, how to use them, synonyms, as well as antonyms. And finally, once you've studied this table, you are able to practice those very words in the next page. Okay, so that is the basic structure of the Roznama. What we wanted to bring to you is a mini Clat, a compilation of questions from all of the major sections each and every day for free so that you can practice and make sure that you are able to nail Clat.